In the northern parts of Salisbury, a young Josiah Tongogara first felt the stirrings of resistance against Rhodesia's white minority rule. Born on February 4, 1938, Tongogara grew up on a farm owned by the family of future Rhodesian Prime Minister Ian Smith. As a boy, he herded cattle and played near the Smiths, sharing sweets from Smith's mother, a fleeting innocence shattered by the racial hierarchies of colonial southern Rhodesia. By the early 1960s, Tongogara had joined the Zimbabwe African People's Union, ZAPU, led by the veteran nationalist Joshua Nkomo, whose calls for majority rule echoed across the land. But ideological fractures soon emerged. In 1963, ZAPU splintered, with Ndabaningi Sithole breaking away to form the Zimbabwe African National Union, ZANU, citing failures in ZAPU's strategy under Nkomo. Tongogara, drawn to ZANU's militant edge, aligned with its armed wing, the Zimbabwe African National Liberation Army, ZANLA, becoming a key figure in its guerrilla operations. Tongogara's ascent in ZANLA was meteoric. Trained in China at the Nanking Military Academy, he absorbed Maoist principles of protracted people's war, emphasizing integration with rural communities, the Povo, as fighters called the peasantry. By 1973, following the assassination of ZANLA commander Herbert Chitepo in Zambia, Tongogara assumed leadership of the High Command. Under his direction, ZANLA swelled to over 12,000 fighters by 1979, launching incursions from bases in Mozambique. These operations paralyzed Rhodesian supply lines, with ZANLA planting thousands of Soviet-supplied anti-tank mines on roads, 2,504 detonations between 1972 and 1980, killing 632 and injuring 4,410. Yet Tongogara's vision extended beyond tactics. He viewed the liberation as a national endeavor, not a factional one. ZAPU's Zimbabwe People's Revolutionary Army, ZIPRA, under Nkomo's command, operated from Zambia with Soviet backing, focusing on conventional warfare. Clashes between ZANLA and ZIPRA were not uncommon. By 1979, a three-way contest had unfolded between the two nationalist armies and Rhodesian forces, with firefights erupting in contested zones. Nkomo, born on June 7, 1917, in a reserve in Matabeleland, embodied the struggle's elder statesman. A railway worker turned union leader, he rose through the Southern Rhodesia African National Congress, becoming its president in 1957. Banned repeatedly, SRANC in 1959, his National Democratic Party, NDP, in 1960, and ZAPU in 1962, Nkomo spent a decade in detention from 1963 to 1974. Released amid pressure from frontline states, he rebuilt ZAPU from exile in Zambia, forging ZIPRA into a disciplined force of 13,500 by war's end. Nkomo, dubbed Father Zimbabwe, drew support from Ndebele communities but sought multi-ethnic alliances. His dual strategy, armed resistance and diplomacy, contrasted with Mugabe's harder line. Mugabe, ZANU's Secretary General since 1977, had endured 10 years in prison alongside Nkomo but emerged more ideological, advocating Marxist-Leninist transformation. ZANLA's Shona base clashed culturally with ZIPRA's Ndebele leanings, fueling tensions. ZANLA's Pungwe night vigils politicized villagers through song and dance, while ZIPRA emphasized military precision without such mobilization. By 1976, external pressures forced a fragile détente. Frontline states, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania, urged unity against Ian Smith's Rhodesian Front, which had declared unilateral independence in 1965 to entrench white rule. ZANU and ZAPU formed the Patriotic Front, PF, on October 9, 1976, a coalition for joint operations. Tongogara, as ZANLA chief, coordinated with ZIPRA's Lookout Masuku, rotating leadership under a joint military command. This alliance amplified pressure on Smith. ZIPRA downed an Air Rhodesia Viscount in 1978, killing 48, while ZANLA's Mozambique incursions stretched Rhodesian forces thin. Yet PF unity was uneasy. Internal ZANU dissent, Plots against Mugabe in 1977 weakened cohesion, and ethnic undertones simmered. Tongogara, pragmatic and ruthless, executed over a dozen ZANLA mutineers during the 1974 Nhari Rebellion, viewing betrayal as treason. His bond with Nkomo deepened through shared exile. Tongogara respected Nkomo's seniority and vision for inclusive governance. As war intensified, Rhodesian troops raiding ZANLA camps in Mozambique, killing over 1,000 at Nadzonia in 1976. Tongogara grew convinced that post-independence strife loomed unless factions merged. The Lancaster House Conference, convened by Britain from September 10 to December 15, 1979, crystallized these fears. Chaired by Foreign Secretary Lord Carrington, it brought PF leaders, Mugabe and Nkomo, to London alongside Smith's delegation and Bishop Abel Muzorewa's internal settlement government. Tongogara, leading ZANLA's delegation, emerged as a moderating force, per Carrington's accounts. He met frequently with Nkomo and Masuku, planning ceasefires and army integration. Tongogara openly advocated a unified PF ticket for the 1980 elections, with Nkomo as frontrunner. In informal sessions, he told ZAPU's Dumiso Debengwa and ZIPRA colleagues that Nkomo was the natural leader with experience and focus, while Mugabe suited administration, perhaps as Secretary General. This stemmed from Tongogara's reservations about Mugabe's authoritarian style, which clashed with his own warrior ethos. ZANU's Shona dominance, 80% of fighters, fueled ethnic suspicions. Tongogara saw Nkomo's multi-ethnic appeal bridging Shona and Ndebele divides. Opposition mounted. Enos Nkala, ZANU's security secretary, resisted, insisting leadership decisions defer to home soil. Mugabe, eyeing the prime ministership, viewed unity as diluting ZANU's gains. Ethnic lines hardened. ZANU's base in Mashonaland, ZIPRA's in Matabeleland. Tongogara pressed on, arguing a united front ensured smoother transition, averting ZANLA-ZIPRA clashes. He envisioned a national army from integrated forces, ZANLA's 21,000 guerrillas merging with ZIPRA's 12,000, under shared command. Nkomo, a veteran of the Geneva talks in 1976, endorsed this, prioritizing stability over rivalry. Yet cracks showed. Mugabe walked out briefly in October, protesting secret British Salisbury pacts. Tongogara's diplomacy held. On December 21, 1979, the agreement was signed, mandating elections and ceasefires. As delegates departed, Tongogara returned to Mozambique to brief ZANLA cadres, promising unity. 6 days later, on December 26th, his car crashed near Naimapanda, killing him at 41. Official reports cited a swerve into an abandoned truck, but suspicions lingered. Smith claimed in memoirs that Tongogara faced threats from his own people. Debengwa later asserted that Tongogara's pro-Nkomo stance sealed his fate. The Lancaster House Agreement's ink had barely dried when Zimbabwe's independence dawned on April 18, 1980. Ceasefire monitors 1,200 Commonwealth troops, oversaw assembly points for 22,000 ZANLA and 8,000 ZIPRA fighters, averting immediate clashes. Yet Tongogara's death reverberated. ZANU proceeded without him, rejecting PF unity. Mugabe's faction, leveraging Shona demographics, campaigned separately as ZANU-PF, securing 57 seats in the February 1980 polls. Nkomo's PF ZAPU took 20, despite Ndebele's strongholds. Voter turnout hit 60%, but intimidation marred rural areas. ZANU's Pungwe rallies coerced support, while ZIPRA's arms caches fueled fears. Mugabe became the prime minister and Nkomo Home Affairs Minister in a coalition cabinet. This uneasy pact masked brewing tensions. ZANLA veterans, 80% of assembly points, resented ZIPRA's Soviet gear, including tanks and SAM missiles. Tongogara's blueprint for integration faltered. The Zimbabwe National Army, ZNA, was formed in November 1981, blending ZANLA, ZAPU, and ex-Rhodesian forces into 46 battalions. But mistrust festered. ZAPU's conventional focus, training in Angola and Zambia, clashed with ZANLA's guerrilla ethos. By mid-1980, arms discoveries on ZAPU properties, including Nkomo's farm, sparked paranoia. In November 1980, ZANLA-ZAPU clashes erupted at Ntambane barracks near Bulawayo, killing 55. The February 1981 uprising, Ntambane II, escalated, spreading to Ntabazinduna and Llewellyn, claiming 300 lives. Ex-Rhodesian units quelled it, but the Dumbutshaina Commission, 1981, exposed ethnic rifts. ZANLA accused ZAPU of hoarding weapons for coups. ZAPU decried ZANLA dominance. Over 300 ZAPU defected, becoming dissidents in Matabeleland's bush. Mugabe's government, viewing ZAPU as a threat, escalated. In 1982, Nkomo was sacked after a Matabeleland arms cache raid. ZAPU denied involvement, but Mugabe labeled it a coup plot. ZAPU veterans, fearing purge, deserted en masse, hundreds by 1983. Nkomo fled to London, decrying fascist tendencies. This triggered Gukurahundi, a North Korean-trained 5th Brigade, mostly ex-ZANLA, deployed to Matabeleland and Midlands. From January 1983 to 1987, it targeted perceived ZAPU strongholds. Official Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace reports, 1997, documented 20,000 civilian deaths. Massacres at Lupane, torture at St. Mary's Camp, villages razed. ZAPU dissidents, numbering 1,000 to 2,000, retaliated sporadically, but most victims were non-combatants. Ndebele speakers accused of ZAPU loyalty. Displacements hit 100,000. Refugees fled to Botswana and South Africa. Nkomo's diplomacy averted total collapse. From exile, he lobbied frontline states and the Commonwealth, framing Gukurahundi as ethnic cleansing. In 1984, he met Mugabe in Lusaka, negotiating under Kenneth Kaunda's auspices. Mugabe, facing economic strain, drought and sanctions, conceded talks. The 1987 Unity Accord, signed on December 22, merged ZAPU into ZANU-PF, granting Nkomo vice presidency. It ended overt violence, integrating the remaining ZAPU into ZNA and indemnifying dissidents. Amnesty followed in 1988, with Nkomo urging disarmament. But scars endured. Unreturned ZAPU farms, unresolved disappearances. Mugabe's 1990 constitutional changes abolished white seats, consolidating power, but unity masked authoritarian drift. Opposition crushed, media muzzled. Tongogara's absence loomed large. Had he lived, his military clout, loyal ZANLA cadres, might have enforced PF merger, sidelining Mugabe's ambitions. Debengwa recalled Tongogara's Lancaster candor. Nkomo is the leader with focus, Mugabe, an administrator. Zvogo later admitted ZANU's numerical arrogance doomed unity. Nkomo's post-1987 role, vice president till 1999, tempered excesses. He halted student beatings in 1990, championed Ekenet's 1998 license against Mugabe's cronies. Strive Masiyiwa credited Nkomo, intervening in cabinet, securing a third license despite Telecel's favoritism. Nkomo's 1984 memoir, The Story of My Life, decried tribalism, urging reconciliation. His death on July 1, 1999, from prostate cancer, closed a chapter. Mugabe eulogized him as Father Zimbabwe, but divisions persisted. Zimbabwe's post-independence trajectory underscores Tongogara's foresight. Nkomo-led PF might have birthed a multi-ethnic state, averting Gukurahundi's horrors. Nkomo inclusive ethos, rooted in strength days, prioritized equity. ZAPU farms and businesses symbolized self-reliance, unlike ZANU's patronage. Economic data support this. Pre-1980, Rhodesia's GDP per capita topped $1,200. By 1987, under Mugabe, hyperinflation loomed, exacerbated by military spending on Gukurahundi, $500 million annually. Unity could have streamlined ZANLA integration, harnessing ZIPRA's conventional assets for development, not suppression. Gukurahudi's toll, 20,000 dead, 100,000 displaced, fractured society. Midlands and Matabeleland lag. 2023 UNDP data shows 40% poverty rates versus 25% nationally, with underfunded schools and clinics. Displaced families, per Catholic reports, endure intergenerational trauma. 10,000 orphans registered by 1987. Mugabe's 1996 Truth and Reconciliation nod fizzled. No prosecutions followed. Nkomo's accord halted bloodshed but enabled ZANU-PF's one-party drift. 1990 amendments curbed opposition, echoing Lancaster fears. Yet Nkomo interventions endured. His 1990s push for youth quotas in ZANU-PF diversified ranks. Econet's growth, now 15 million subscribers, 10% GDP contribution, traces to his 1998 stand against corruption. Tongogara's death, 6 days post-Lancaster, remains enigmatic. Tungamarai's account, 2 vehicles from Maputo to Chimoio, Tongogara's crashing into an unmarked truck, suggests an accident. But Smith's memoirs and Debengwa's 2018 claims point to ZANU hardliners, fearing Tongogara's sway. Mnangagwa, Tongogara's brother-in-law via Jane Tongogara, renamed barracks in 2017. Yet 2012 reports noted his widow Angelina denied veteran benefits. Tongogara's China ties, Maoist discipline, shaped his unity push. Without him, Mugabe's factionalism prevailed. Nkomo's legacy shines in restraint. Post-1987, he mediated Mugabe's excesses, halting 1990 student arrests, advocating land reform sans violence. Pre-2000, his 1983 flight, fearing assassination, galvanized international scrutiny, pressuring Mugabe. By 1990, as senior vice president, Nkomo embodied reconciliation, though figurehead status galled. His death prompted Mugabe's tribute, a colossus, yet unaddressed grievances, ZAPU asset seizures, fuel Matabeleland activism, like 2013's Ndebele genocide commemorations. Had Tongogara's vision triumphed, a unified PF under Nkomo, Zimbabwe might mirror Botswana's stability. GDP growth averaging 5% since 1980, multi-ethnic governance. Instead, ethnic schisms persist. The 2023 elections saw ZANU-PF accused of Matabeleland marginalization. Reforms lag. SAG's 2023 report condemned irregularities, echoing Lancaster's unheeded unity calls. Tongogara's barracks renaming and Nkomo's airport honor 1990s, nod to giants, but Gukurahudi's unhealed wounds. Per 2024 IOM surveys, 30% PTSD in affected areas. Remind, division's cost endures. Zimbabwe's story might be Tongogara's unfinished symphony, unity's melody drowned by discord.